Welcome back to the Black Hills and Eastern Railroad, everybody. A guy asked me earlier this week what it means when you see DCC ready on a locomotive box. And I have one of those for you right here.
Black Hills and Eastern Railroad, from the plains of the Sioux Empire to the heart of the hills.
So the first thing we're going to do here is get the shell popped off this bad boy. And I don't have a locomotive cradle, so these two pieces of foam here will have to do. And since I'm holding this basically parallel to the edge of the bench, I'm making sure to hold on to it with a hand here in case it would roll and roll off of the bench. That's another instance of ask me how I know, and a pliers to grab things out of there. As long as we've got those couplers out of there, we might as well replace the couplers too with something a little bit more decent. And then the top of the draft gear comes out the front. I think, yeah. I did happen to notice that as we're starting this, we are missing the fan for, or the screen for the top of the dynamic brake fan here. We'll have to try and scare that up after we get done doing this DCC install. So I'm going to gently lift the shell off of the chassis here, and as suspected, this is exactly what I expected on the inside here. So we've actually got two different ways to install DCC here for you guys that are unfamiliar with this. You've got your 8-pin connector here, which you can go ahead and plug directly into, or you've got a I'm not sure how many pins this is. This is the desirable way to plug a decoder in. This dummy plug comes out, and you plug your decoder directly into that. So that's what we're going to be doing here. This slides right out of there. Maybe not slides right out of there, but it comes out of there. This part here you can discard if you don't plan to run the engine on DC anymore or on straight DC. You can run most Digitrax decoders come with DC conversion enabled. They run fine on DC and DCC, but so here is a DH166. I purchased this at my local hobby retailer. Pretty much everything you'd expect here as well. Read and keep this instruction sheet that comes with this. It does hold some value for you. So this is just to give an explanation. This is a DH166P. I probably would have been just as well off to get a DH166D. The P version basically gives you this wiring harness with the 8-pin plug that would fit into that receptacle. You could plug that in, but then you lose the functionality off of the green and purple wires up here on the front of the board, which basically gives you a bit more functionality as lighting. You'd have to be hardwiring in the green and the purple wire if you'd use the 8-pin plug, like you have to do on basically all those older production Kados that have the DCC plug in them. They're also DCC ready, but not as ready as this engine, I guess, if you will. So basically all that's left is to slide this decoder on. You'll notice that there's a slot either side of the decoder socket, the connector socket, as is there a slot on the Athearn motherboard or the Athearn factory printed circuit board. So essentially that's all we need to do. That's our DCC install. Except if we were going to replace the lights, and this is still an old enough installation here, an old enough production engine to still have the crappy incandescent bulbs. These crappy Athearn incandescent bulbs are well noted not to last very long, so we may well be opening this shell up, and perhaps I should do this right now, but I don't have time to put LEDs and probably fiber optics in here, which would be preferable. You've seen me do that here on the channel before, and I'll probably do that again if we find that these light bulbs don't hold up, which is pretty much inevitable at this point. So I'll just put the shell back on and we'll be off and running on the programming track. So I've got the engine up here on the programming track, and you see this time I remember to take my Kadee height gauges off of the programming track to avoid certain difficulties. So I have my JMRI Decoder Pro fired up here. I am going to go to new loco right away, and I'm going to drill down into Digitrax, and I want Series 6 silent improved back EMF. And it doesn't really matter which one I pick, they're all the same board here. DH163, 166. I'm so used to the old days. 166P is exactly what we have here. We'll go ahead and open Comprehensive Programmer. And then the first thing that I want to do is go over to the Basic tab and hit Read Full Sheet, so I can read everything in from the decoder. And you see it's reading CVs right now there on the bottom. The first thing I'm going to do here is change to long 2-byte address, and I'm going to take the 5066 is the number of the engine, and that's my practice to adhere to as the decoder address. I don't have any conflicts with that here on the system, and we're going to keep that the way it is. We're going to turn off analog conversion, and we're going to hit Write Changes on Sheet here. We're going to go ahead and grab the Lights tab here now, and I'm going to hit Read Full Sheet here as well. And I want, I'm not going to mess with the function 0, but I do want to mess with, I want to see what's available here. I don't actually know. I must plead ignorance. Somebody from the C&NW crowd has got to help me out here. Single pulse strobe or double pulse strobe. I'm pretty sure it's not a rotary beacon, that like the same thing as on the BN units. I'm going to go with a double pulse strobe here. And this is going to be a non-directional. I want it to be on when I turn it on, and it'll only go off when I turn it off. And then again, this is function 1 here. And I'm going to hit Write Changes on Sheet. And again, one of you C&W guys can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I'm just taking a guess. It's not random flicker. I don't think it's a Mars light. It's definitely not a Mars light. It's not a flashing headlight. That's the only thing. Then gyro light maybe. None of this other stuff makes any sense. I think it's one of the two here, flashing, or excuse me, I think it's one of the two here, single pulse strobe or double pulse strobe, one of the two. So we'll go ahead and go with that. And I don't think there's anything else here. We're going to take this off and put it out on the layout and see how it works. So here we are in the BN Sioux City yard, and it appears that everything is well with this engine. I've got directional headlights here now, and it's nice and smooth in both directions, quiet. That guess that the doodad on the top of the cab there is on F1 was a good guess. And looks like we'll be putting the couplers back on and situating this thing over in the C&W yard here in Sioux City. So we're back here in the shop at the workbench, and I'm going to replace these knuckle couplers that the engine came with. I think these are McHenry. And Athearn's not likely to ever use anything better than McHenry because I think they own McHenry now. I'm replacing these with Kadee. These are the whisker type couplers. You can see the centering spring is built into the shank of the coupler here. So this is kind of an interesting development here. I sort of absent-mindedly put on underset shank couplers, and it seems to be a very happy coincidence that on the front here that lines up exactly the way we want it. And then if you observe here with that opposing trip pin being under the plow here, that works out pretty well as well. So that seems skosh better with that number 5 coupler there in that draft gear. So as far as this dynamic brake fan screen is concerned here, I wondered what I was going to do with that, and I was going to go back to Athearn. I found not much available on that. I took a deep dive into my parts bin and found a Canon Company thin wall kit, and I realized this isn't quite exactly the right screen for the top of this, but you know what? It'll do. It's close enough. So I've got some canopy glue, and we're going to dab a little bit of that around here on the perimeter of that fan and place this fan screen and set this engine aside and let that set up for And I'm just going to take that fan screen and set it on top of there. I did have to paint this, and I painted it Eisen Poly S C&W green. Believe it or not, from leftover from a project long ago. So here we see that brand new GP50, the 5066, with a transfer job going from the C&W yard in Sioux City over to the BN yard in Sioux City, doing the work that it was purchased to do. Here's where we've reached the point where we're going to pull the pin on this particular episode. We hope you enjoyed the content. If you did, smash that like button. Subscribe for more, leave us a comment. And hopefully, if everything goes well, I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.